So welcome to a little bit of a diversion from regular Newcastle Central videos. This is some of the N-gauge work that I've been talking about. So this is a T-Trak module. So T-Trak was something that was relatively new to me when I started with all of this. But T-Trak is somewhat of a modular standard, and the idea is that you would have tabletop setup essentially. And so there are some other standards within N-gauge for some of the more exhibition layouts. So N-Trak is one. I think the standard there, the modules are something like 4 feet by 2 feet wide. Typically have 3 main lines running through on the front, typically one at the back. The T-Trak is designed to be more of a tabletop layout, much lower barrier to entry, so I didn't quite do that. This is a triple T-Trak module. Try and come all the way out. So this is 3 times the width of what a normal module would be. Regular module is about a little over 12 inches by 12 inches. That's actually more done in millimeters, but that's essentially, you're looking at about 1 foot by 1 foot. It's typically a single T-Trak module. So you can get singles, doubles, triples. Quads is really the largest, but even the triple that I'm doing here, not frowned upon, but this is normally about as large as you would get. And the idea is that it's very, very basic constructions. This is just 1 by 3, and then I've got 5.2 millimeter plywood on top, a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch, just so it's a little bit lighter. So very, very basic construction. There isn't really anything to that, so I didn't really want to record any video of how I did that. It was literally 4 lengths of 1 by 3, and then cut the plywood top, and then just skewer that down. But the idea here is that I've got something a little bit different that I can do inside. I'm sitting inside a nice warm dining room here rather than out inside the train shed where the regular Newcastle Central double low gauge layout is. And so also looking at then being able to take this along as part of the United Northwest Train Club up here in the Pacific Northwest. They have quite a good T-Trak layout put together. They also have an N-Trak layout, and then they have a much larger, more standard modular layout. Some of those modules get up to 5 feet by 3, 6 feet by 4. Pretty sizable. So 3 good size layouts that the club has. T-Trak is one that does get a lot of attention just because it's somewhat different, and the whole idea is that they're very pluggable. This is all Carter Unitrack, which is why it looks a little bit different than maybe some of the Pico or the Atlas Set-Track that you might be using. The Carter Unitrack, the idea is that they have integrated joiners in place. If we can just come in and zoom in. So they've got the rail joiners already connected to them. So one of these joiners will go with one track, other joiner will go with another track. And so the idea is that they'll just clip in. And so when we come on to one of the ends here, it actually overlaps slightly. This is just a loose piece sitting on top of that. It's not a real module. This is my actual module. And just overhang slightly. These two are carrying power. And that's pretty much it. And so the construction is very basic, and the idea is that you can just plug these together. So there are standards in terms of the depth, so 1.5 inches from the front to this first piece, and then there's a set separation of 33 millimeters between the 2 tracks. And the 2 tracks are really all at the standard kind of dictates. Standard module, like I say, I think is 12 or 14 inches deep, something like that. And then you have a little bit of freedom as to what you do. So the single modules, you often have some basic scenery going on. You would then expand out to a double if you want to have a little bit more freedom what you do. This is then a triple because what I want to be able to model here was somewhat of a maintenance facility, a diesel maintenance facility. So at the back here it will be a maintenance shed for 2 locomotives. I do need a little bit of an extension piece in here just to bring this warm bay further back. This here is then going to be for refueling. And I may add another turnout in here, so this may become 2 lines. This is then just somewhat of a little siding, so you could drop some coaches in here, or maybe as a locomotive is coming in, dropping some coaches, going in to refuel, or going in to get some maintenance, and then we'll pick up coaches. And then you got your 2 man lines here. It's just because what I was wanting to try and do, I needed to make this a triple. And I also wanted to do a little bit more than just a single module, so that when I am doing this by myself at home, I've got some kind of operational stuff going on. So again, it's a little bit of a diversion from the regular Newcastle Central and double low gauge. So if that's what you're looking for, excuse me, so that's what you're looking for, then feel free just to skip these N-gauge videos. And I was hoping that it would be something a little bit different, just to kind of broaden my horizons and my perspectives, pick up some new skills, try something a little bit different, and then be able to, come back fresh on Newcastle Central. So let's go and look a little bit as I start to actually have the track work here, because track work with the Carter Unitrack and the wiring, the turnouts, is a little bit different than if you're just using regular track, either HO, double O, or N-gauge track. So let's have a look at that, and then let's look at some locos and actual wagons moving around in the layout. So this is now with 2 main lines going through. I'm starting to do that first turnout siding. It's actually really cool that the little Kato blue reed railer that you get in any of the Kato kind of variation track sets is also good for doing the measuring. There are little notches in it. If we can move it a little bit in the light, there are notches in it, and they're set right at the spacing that's needed between the tracks. So these two are already glued down. This is the one that I'm now working on. So what I was doing was just trying to figure out, loosely whereabouts where it would need to be and how to do one-handed. And then all I'm doing is putting just a dab of hot glue onto the bottom of the track sections, making sure that it all lines up, and then gluing it down in place. So I'm going to start moving forward with this, and then once I come over to this section here where I've got some of the point works, then we can look and see how I did these first ones. All I was doing was marking out and drilling a hole underneath, and so you can already start to see some of the cabling coming through. So I've already got 2 power. These first 2 are for power, they're track power, and then this would be the accessory power, so that I can throw the switches. At least for starting out, I'm probably just going to be manually throwing them, but I do want to make sure that they are all wired up for electric throw once I get there. So I'll glue down another 2 or 3 pieces here, and then once we get to the switches, these turnouts, then we'll stop and show how I'm marking those out and attaching those. So this is what it looks at wiring up the turnouts. Nothing all that special. Again, you just got the Kato connectors for the power. I'm not going to be using them right now, but at least to be wired up so that they are ready. One thing that I do to do a little differently, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, is the power routing mode on these. I have these set to non-power routing because I'm doing DCC, and so best I can determine is that the Kato turnouts themselves can handle power themselves. I do have frog power left on, and when by default they come as power routing and frog power, and what I was finding was I was getting shorts when the locos would go over the turnouts. And a little bit of research, and this may not be the right way to do it, but what I found is that switching it to non-power routing, leaving the frog polarity on, made it just fine, so that again on DCC, when the locos were going over the turnouts, then there was no problems, wasn't shorting out, and I could have just the 1 power drop that would feed the whole section, and power was fine, as long as I was throwing all the turnouts correctly. That's kind of part of the whole switching puzzle idea. So that's all it is. So I've got all of these sections glued in place now, and so now just put a little bit of again hot glue on the bottom of those, put them in place, and then I can start doing what will move up into the actual maintenance depot and fuel depot. Okay, so this is now the top side of the module. All completed. Well, I say all completed. All of the point work is in place, and all of this point work is in place. This one part here I have glued down. What I'm actually thinking I may end up doing is having another right-hand number 4 turnout right here. The idea being that you would then go back into refueling, and coming off would come in, and there will be another section there, and that's where one of the actual tanker trucks would come in place, and then have some kind of little fuel storage here. Not entirely sure, but for now at least that's the way I'm going to run it. And then these 2 lines coming back here that are going to be where the actual maintenance depot is going to be. They aren't glued down. There's a tiny little dab of glue just on the underneath the actual inspection bays on each of these. Reason being is that I need I need either a very shorter piece here. This is a 64mm piece, so I need to see what lengths there are here, or if it's a very short, 18 maybe 20mm length here. I'm not sure what short sections of cutout track there are. But the radius also isn't quite right. I can somewhat bend it in place and get the correct 33mm track separation between the two, which is pretty sure what I should be doing in terms of any kind of buildings that I'm going to get that would have the track spaced. So for now I'm going to leave it like that because it'll be okay until I figure out the actual building that I'm going to put in place. There's actually a Walther's kit that I really like that I may well end up using. So if that's what I go for, then once I get that and I figure out what the track separation needs to be, then I can very, very gently just move those as needed. It will work, and the trends can still, I think the trends can still move around. So that's what it looks like top side. Underneath, this is now what we're looking at. So I've got my two power drops coming in there. This will then run off to DCC control, and then the turnout wiring is all just kind of bundled up there and ready to go whenever I would actually get that sorted. So I think what I'm going to do now, just quick to make sure, is go and get one of the locos and hook it up and get DCC on this and see if I can actually move around correctly. It did before I glued all the track down. Probably should have been doing this along the way. Pretty sure that's going to work, so we'll soon find out. Okay, so the proof is always in the actual execution. So we'll see how this goes. Going to do just a very, very quick operating session to see what happens. So this is Kato, the MD-SD70 SCE. And what I'm going to try and do is move it out of this particular inspection pit. I'm going to assume I'm going to bring it in and do a little bit of refueling. Now I just have a very, very basic Bachmann easy command DCC unit here, and so I haven't actually programmed CBV code, so it either crawls along like this or it kind of picks up a little bit of a pace and moves forward a little bit faster than I would want to. So let's just slow it down about here, move it over, okay, and then let's go here, and that's already set to bring it in there. So let's see, when we now back up, we should be able to come into refueling. A little fast, but there we go. Okay, so he's now coming in and he can refuel. So we're going to assume that he's now got fueled up, and I'm going to see if we can bring him onto this side. Let's assume that we'd had a couple of cars here. Now this does get a little bit tight because this is just a single T-Trak module. My point is right here, and when I had it just testing on the tabletop, there was just enough clearance. So, hold on to your hats as we do this, because I am going to have to try and get them like right there before we can actually do anything. Let's see. Moving. Alright, let's see if I can park this thing right on the edge, right there. Alright, and then I'm going to throw this, and he should now be able to back up into that siding. Okay, just a little bit fast, but he could now back into the siding there. If he wanted to, he could pick up a couple of coaches, and then he should be able to go. On as well. So yeah, quite happy with how all of that worked out. Let's see if we can move him back up into a different one on the inspection pits. Let's assume that he's gone off and he's done his day of bidding. See if we can slow it down. Very cautious not to go over the edge. That was a little close. Okay, so we'll throw that one, and I'm going to throw that one. Let's see if we can get him into that other inspection bay. Yeah, I'll probably do it right there. So yeah, very happy with how all that worked out. And again, someone may well correct me and say, no, that is not the right way to be doing the power routing on the Kato turnouts. But this is the only power drop that I have. I have one here as well. If you remember when we looked on the underside, all we had were these 2 power drops. This is my only power drop that feeds all of this. Now, in reality, on my actual larger layout where it's not the T-Trak modules, I would have pretty much every part of the track wired up with droppers here. At least for this works out just fine. It might be one where I could maybe do with putting a dropper in here. I don't know. I believe that the club standard is that every module should have power droppers here. I think T-Trak module, the T-Trak standard says every 3 or 4 modules. I'm not 100% there. So at least what I'm going to do is I'm going to put power droppers, on either end. So I'm going to have another module that will go over here. I'm going to have another module that will go over there. But yeah, this one power dropper is what is powering all of that. And the key was, for DCC, again, for DC operation, you would probably need to put the power feeders in. And I believe you would be putting power as you would come into the points, into the turnouts here. I believe that's how you do it for DC, and you would then leave it to power routing. For DCC, non-power routing, leave the frog polarity on, and there we go. The loco was able to move from one of the inspection pits out into fueling, out into siding, back, and then into other inspection pit. I don't quite have enough length to be able to get onto this man line here, but I know that that's going to be working correctly. The only thing that I don't have to test is putting it on here, but there's really not a whole lot to that. That will just go. So there we go. That's first T-Trak module all done, or at least the best track work and all the wiring in place. Yeah, we will see what Santa Claus brings me, and maybe in the next little clip we'll have a little bit more action that we can have going on here. So I've moved inside where it's a little bit warmer and can look over a couple of the things that Santa Claus brought me for Christmas yesterday. So in the background there is the EMD 70 SE. That's what we were doing some basic operations with when we were just looking over the T-Trak module when I first put it together. And then up front here is a Microtrans 56-foot general service tank car. It's about 260,000 pounds capacity in Union Pacific livery. There was a weathered and an unweathered version of this. I decided to go for the unweathered version. I thought that the weathered version kind of wore it down a little bit too much. As much as I probably will weather it down, I thought I would like to control how I do all of that. So that is kind of hanging out where that refueling area was going to be. And that's why I was saying what I may end up doing is putting in another turnout here, and so you'll be able to have a loco come in and drop that tank car in here. There's enough room where we could have the turnout here, drop the tank car in, and the actual locomotives will be able to come in and then fuel up. Or if there was no tank car there, then you would have two lines of fueling, and then probably have some kind of fuel storage around there. But that's hanging out there, so we can kind of see, and then we can slowly then bring in some other new additions. Slow down a little bit. So this was the GES 44 ASE. This is also in Union Pacific livery. Way back out, and that is then pulling a couple of Atlas hopper cars. Again, Union Pacific livery, individually numbered. There's another few available in there, so at the moment I just went with the 2 hopper cars. I'll expand now, but it's really like that logo. It also came with the Kobo TCS decoder fitted. I'm not sure if that was my mistake or if that was a mistake during shipping. Not complaining too much, because one thing that was very nice is that it's got those CVV codes set for slow speed operation, much better than the Digitrax encoder that I've got sitting in the 70 SE there, just because I haven't updated those. But out of the box, I really like this 44 SE and those low speed CVV code set. So, really like some of the operations that we could do here. So there we go. We would still have these 2 main lines clear now that we've pulled into that bypass. So I'm going to pause quick and assume that the loco is then uncoupling from those, and then he can do a couple more moves to get into one of the maintenance pairs. Yes, he has uncoupled now, and so he can now move off. And so one thing that I may look at doing is putting in some magnetic uncoupling points beneath the tracks. And I've also expanded out just past the end of the layout here, so I am a little bit less concerned about running off the edge. So I'll then throw a couple of these turnouts and see if we can get him back into one of the other maintenance pairs. We could also put him into refueling, but we'll try putting him into the other maintenance pair alongside the 70 SE and see how the two of them then look. Actually needs to go back just a little bit further. And there we go. So I have also ordered up a building that we can put in here for the maintenance depot. It's one of the Pike stuff, 2-bay engine sheds. I got some detailing kits for the outside, things like vents and hoods, interior detailing as well, so things like air compressors, arc welders, toolboxes, workbench and work shelves. I'm kind of excited to see that little area come together. So that won't get here probably until next week. Also got some refueling stuff as well. I can't remember who that was from. It'll be a fun little mix of stuff that will be coming in just to see this area expand out a little bit. So that's kind of how I'm looking at the moment. It's starting to look a little bit more like maintenance area would be, refueling area would be. And again, we still have these two man lines clear, so as you'll be able to move cars around, as you'll be able to drop off cars, pick up cars, so this could also then be used totally outside of all the maintenance area that's going on with the trans and with the refueling. This little siding now could be used just for other locals to be able to drop off cars and pick up as well. So this is a fun little build up here. So we've enjoyed this little bit of a diversion from the regular Newcastle Central and double low gauge. Again, this is just something a little bit different to try out with the T-Trak modules. So if you're enjoying this, then please do subscribe and follow along. Obviously a little bit more infrequent updates than the regular Newcastle Central videos are. But as I go through and as I add in some of the buildings, as I work on refueling, as I start to do some of the scenery, and again as I start to go beyond just this one. This is a triple modular. As I go beyond this, I'm planning on having another double, probably a triple, on one side that would be for small industry, and then on the other side maybe have a small little passenger station. And so that would kind of then give me essentially 8 T-Trak module sections, albeit a triple, and a double. But that would also then give me about 8 feet of operations, which I think would be a very, very good little tabletop layout. So do subscribe and follow along. If you're a regular viewer for Newcastle Central, that isn't going anywhere. That is continuing. It's just a little bit warmer to be able to do this inside the house on the dining room table or out in the garage where it's somewhat more temperature controlled than the outside shed. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this. Please do comment if you got any ideas for things moving forward. And this was also our first time working with N-gauge and with T-Trak. So if you got any comments or suggestions as to how that could be improved, please do let me know. Always looking for new ideas to help improve things. Thanks. Bye bye.